either live by the gun or you die by the sword.
Bienvenidos, niños de la noche, al bueno, el malo y el raro podcast. Soy Nico.
Y soy Chris.
Yeah, welcome to the Get Them Around the Weird podcast. We wanted to do something a little bit classic vampire-wise, and also something that, honestly, I feel is a bit overlooked.
I would say very overlooked.
But also mainstream, and it's a little bit mainstream, and should be explored a little bit more.
Absolutely.
And for this MicroView, we are doing 1931's Universal film Dracula.
But the Spanish one.
Exactly. And I just want to put it out there. I apologize if I mispronounce anything. I am no Spanish expert. I never took a single lesson of Spanish.
I took 2 years in high school and 1 in 8th grade, and all I really can do is name my fingers and my toes. Dedos da pie. Fingers of...
I like that name, actually.
Me too. Is it correct? I have no idea. I went to a very strange school.
Interesting. And also, I'm very newer to the Mexican vampire genre in general, so I've seen about 3 or 4, but I haven't seen as much as they're out there, and some of them are actually pretty hard to find while I was trying to get some.
And while I am super familiar with the early Universal Studio works, I was not familiar with their push in the 1930s and 40s to have more Spanish-speaking movies. Mm-hmm. And so this is going to be the start to a rabbit hole for me, because apparently this was pretty common, having big name title, recreate it, all Spanish. Not dubbed, just fully remake the movie.
Very much so. But like the American adaptation, this one is based off Bram Stoker's novel Dracula, with screenplay by Baltazar Fernandez Q, with the American writers John L. Balderston, Hamilton Dane, Garrett Fort, and Dudley Murphy going uncredited. It's directed by George Melford, and it stars Carlos Villieres as Conde Dracula, Lupita Tovar as Eva, Barry Norton as Juan Harker, and Pablo Alvarez Rubio as Renfield. And like the Japanese cast and crew that we tend to do, I do want to go over what some of these other people have done.
Absolutely.
Q has only 8 writing credits and is known for Los Q Danzan and La Volutande, or Volutande del Muerto, both from 1930.
Okay.
Melford is actually an American director who, at least I'm a little bit aware of. His works include Love in the Desert from 1929 and Jungle Menace from 1937.
And he doesn't speak Spanish, actually. He had to have a translator for the whole thing, which is a very strange way to direct, but go for it, I guess.
Yeah, it's kind of makes me think a little bit of how Sukiyaki Western Django, everyone had learned their lines in English, but they didn't actually speak it.
Yeah, it has similar vibes.
Villieres is known for his role as Nostradamus in 1937's Nostradamus, as well as El Cuerpo del Delito.
Sure.
Tovar is Maria in 1943's Resurrection, and also Maria in 1938's Maria.
Wow, a lot of Marias.
Norton was Reginald Von Leer in The Wizard.
Yes.
As well as Robert Jackson in The Sea Friend, or The Sea Fiend.
There it is.
And this is Rubio's best known role, but he was also El Papa in Monsieur del Fox, and an actor in Sombras Habaneras.
Very exciting.
Yes. So, but yeah, like you said, this one is an interesting one because I didn't know that it existed until I started going down years ago when I started going through the classic Universal monster movies. I had no clue that they had even tried making a Spanish language Dracula. I think this was their first attempt to break into that market altogether.
I'm not sure if this is the first attempt, but this was definitely the most successful first of attempts. This mostly came about because Universal originally would show all of their pictures across the world with no problem, but they were silent pictures. Didn't really have a language barrier back then, because you could just flip out the cards and problem solved.
Yeah, you see that with the classic Nosferatu and a lot of these other Lost films.
Absolutely. Once we started having to have speaking roles... Yeah. Once we had the speaking roles... I guess they decided it was easier to just reshoot all of these films instead of just dubbing over them, which I guess kind of makes sense, because a lot of these, this one especially, they reuse the same sets as their other films. They were usually filmed around the same time, if not directly on top of.
They were actually, this one was entirely filmed at night after filming of the American Dracula had been done.
Yeah, in fact, the director, Melford, would sit around and watch Todd Browning, who was directing the American version at the time, watch his, take notes, and then go direct his own that evening, which I do think works. Like, it's fine. And I do think they both ended up being significantly different enough to not just be like a carbon copy sort of situation.
Exactly. And that's the thing is, like, this one is just under 30 minutes longer, and some of the dialogue is a little bit different. But I think, to your point of, and not, while they were silent films, I think once you get into the language as well, it's important to have someone from those countries or those who can actually speak those languages actually in the films, rather than just, okay, well, we're going to dub over these. Like, what we saw, it's kind of interesting because we see the opposite happen with the martial arts boom.
We sure do.
Where we have...
It is literally just copied over.
Everything is as dubbed over as you can get, to the point that some of these copies, I don't even know if we can get the original Mandarin or Cantonese.
And as we have learned more recently with the, newer abilities to translate and have captions to movies, some of those old translations weren't very good or very accurate. We were missing a lot of the story from that. So I'm not bashing this at all. It is definitely more money. Granted, this movie was given a much smaller budget than its American counterpart.
Yeah, but that's the other impressive thing, is because they didn't need the full budget as well, because they did reuse a lot of the sets from the original.
Very true.
To the point where, they reused some footage, like the possum and the armadillo in the in the basement of Transylvania, known for the North American possum and armadillos.
Also, the American armadillo, too. This isn't even this is the uniquely Midwestern armadillo. But that's fine, don't worry about it. The other thing that I think actually works better is some of the background characters are given costumes that are much more Mexican styled than the American version. We have multiple guys wearing sombreros in this, which this is a Spanish film. Why not lean into it more?
Yeah.
There's no reason. This is 1930s. We can do whatever we want.
Yeah, well, and I think that little extra time it gives just a little bit more depth to some of the characters, instead of the cut and dry bits that the original or the American adaptation has.
Absolutely.
Specifically for me, the brides descending on Renfield gives more fear than just, oh, they pop up for 3 seconds and are driven away.
I will say that while this one has many silly scenes, which we will talk egregiously about here in a moment, I do think this one is scarier than the American one. And I don't want to compare the two a whole lot, because I do think they are both completely unique films and should stand apart.
But it's hard not to, just because they use the exact same sets and almost the exact same footage at times and camera angles. So they're almost shot for shot, but they're not shot for shot, not like Funny Games.
Yeah, and there's just slightly some ever subtle tweaks that some of the Dracula scenes I think are scarier. I think there's a lot of intensity to this one.
Yeah, especially making the ship scene bigger. That adds a lot more to it than just, okay, well, he's there and now Renfield's crazy, and then we spend a little too much time with him staring up at the camera.
Also, I do think this Renfield, this actor, did a much better job at being crazy. He was... it starts off a little goofy, as all Renfield crazy characters are when we get them in Dracula films, but this one just kind of kept going and going and going, and he really got kind of almost spooky there at the end. Yeah,
well, and that's the thing too, is not to knock any of them, but honestly, most of this cast is solid. I don't think I have any real complaints, although I will say some of the reactions are just that little bit goofy and slightly over dramatized. But
granted, it is also the 1930s.
Yes, no, exactly. That's the thing. Is I understand that we're coming off of the silent era, so we're having people adjust to the new era of cinema, or even moving from stage to camera.
And our leading actress does have a like brief before the scenes sort of cut that you can watch on one of the DVDs that we had. And so she talked a lot about how like she was originally a very drama-based actress, and she decided she would take that in with the role, not knowing what the other actress for the other Dracula was doing. And it wasn't until after the movie had come out that she realized she ended up playing a much sexier, more dramatic version. But she loved it. She felt like it portrayed her and her culture much better than this stiff, more British style.
Yeah, well, and that is the one thing is, if you ever get into more of the Spanish movies, there's a lot more cleavage.
Oh, yes.
And it's one thing Chong said in Bloodsucking Cinema. He mentioned that the Spanish vampire movies are always sexier because he thought it played more into with the Catholic guilt to make it more forbidden of like, oh, it's a little bit too sexy for the silver screen at the time.
I can definitely see that. I also, from listening to a couple of the talks, especially from our leading actress, but from a couple of the other actors from interviews that I could find, from mostly just their time in general, not specifically this film were the interviews I could find, but they cite regularly how they felt that the movies they worked on were so much more passion and emotionally based, especially the actresses felt that like it wasn't necessarily just sexy, though I can see how the American audience would see this and feel like it was way sexier. They just felt like it was expressing the passion of who they are and who their culture represented much better than if it had been like stiff upper lip sort of thing.
Yeah, and that is the one thing. Even though I do make fun of some of the reactions a little bit, I do think that they add more to the movie than the American version. The American one, like you said, is very dry.
It's very dry.
I can see why it's hard for some people who aren't super into this era of film to not really want to go back to it.
I can definitely see it. I think people-wise, this one is so spot on. All the acting is really great. The sets also look really good. Granted, they're from the other movie for the most part, but they still look really good. They get reshot really nicely. They even come across from the 30s really well. Like, this is a black and white film, but you still get a nice depth. You still get nice shadows and light. It's not everything's blacked out or blurry. The props. The props are my only real complaint.
the bat.
Especially the bat. I forced my husband to watch this in an effort to culture him a little.
Okay.
And the only part I think he truly watched was the scene where Dracula is pretending to be the coachman and then changes into a bat, and the bat is like has the reins to the horses and is driving the coach, and it is just literally a rubber bat clearly on a wire on a stick. The stick's barely out of frame. It's bobbing and weaving and jiggling around the front with like real horses being superimposed behind. It's beautiful, but I think that's the only scene he watched.
Yeah, and well, speaking of the coach driver, I think that is one of my favorite shots in this entire movie is when he meets him, and it's the very noir style covering up his face. Like, it does such a good job of leaning into those aspects that the American one feels more stage play than this one.
This Dracula feels much more magical than a lot of early Draculas did. A lot of them have some magic elements, but a lot of them tried to pull it back and, quote, make it more realistic. Granted, there had only been like 8 Dracula movies for a lot of the time. Like, this was pretty new. We could go wherever we wanted. This one leans all in. This man can change into bats, and he's got control over armadillos and bugs, and he can make men go crazy and do his bidding, and he can also hypnotize you in the goofiest way possible. But I like that. I like how they really leaned in. There was nothing out of reach for Dracula. They even kind of lightly throw in the wolves, even though clearly out of their budget. They just have a man howling off set. But it works. It gives the illusion of this very all-powerful being, which helps because, unfortunately, apparently in the prop budget, fangs weren't available. This Dracula has no fangs, and that's unfortunate because our actor has a really good Dracula, like, grin to him.
Yeah, although I will say at one point, like when we first meet him, he does look a little Nicolas Cagey.
I'm glad you picked up on that as well. I don't even want to say just the first part. There's multiple scenes, and I think it's the oversized smile, because we've come to associate that with Cage. It, unfortunately, again, no fangs at all in this whole movie. And it just makes him look like Cage instead of Dracula.
Yeah, from like Vampire's Kiss, where he's getting a little bit too wide-eyed for this.
Oh my god, yes. But it was good. Like, it was very good. And if I had just had, like, a little pencil and could, like, on the film, just add in 2 little fangs, I think that would have fixed the scene entirely. It would have changed it from cage to scary. Very
much so. And I will say with some of this, not editing, but the film stock, I don't think it's been preserved as well as the Bela Lugosi one, because I don't know if you noticed on the copy I have from Universal, there's parts where quality dips quite a bit.
So there is kind of a reason for that. So when this movie came out, it was first released in Cuba. Did okay in theaters in Cuba, supposedly, but not super well. Universal, of course, was not deterred. They had already put out like a bunch of other Spanish films by this point that had done well, proving their concept. They kind of took that whole rabbit hole down a different lane, as far as I could tell. This movie did fine in Cuba that wasn't then shown anywhere else, as far as I could find. It wasn't until the 60s, or maybe early 70s, that some people found a movie poster of it, and were like, wow, this is hella cool. I didn't even know this existed. The movie poster then made someone find it. I guess in New Jersey is where they found the film afterwards. It was then re-released in 1977 at the Museum of Modern Architecture, modern art.
I was gonna say.
I auto-corrected to architecture. No, modern art. It did well at that screening, well enough that they then published it to VHS tape, which is how most people then saw it. So the film that we got that then ended up on VHS tape and then was way later re-released by Universal on DVD came damaged because it was hanging out in some guy's attic for a long time.
Yes, and I mean, that's not uncommon with a lot of lost films. I mean, you see that happen with, like, even the old Nosferatu and whatnot, the copies we have. I mean, they've cleaned them up quite a bit, but they're still there. But I think that's interesting, especially because, like I said, I'm very new to the Spanish side of vampire movies. I mean, outside of this, I've really only seen El Vampiro, the sequel.
Solid one.
And then I want to say I've seen like 1 or 2 more, but it's the only other one that I can think of right now is Santo versus the Vampire Women.
Delightful, yeah.
Yeah. But I know there's a lot more out there, and this honestly is, like, if anyone wants to, like, go through the history, this is a good start. And I think we see a lot more, not Tex-Mex, but Southern U.S. style Mexican movies when it comes to our Spanish vampire movies.
Yeah, and I do think part of that is partially this was an all-Spanish cast with an American director who didn't speak any Spanish at all. And so there was clearly some I don't want to say miscommunication, but just some creative liberties from cast and crew taken that I don't know if the director was really like the brainchild behind it. Because you can definitely see where he's having actors pull in and do more of what he'd seen clearly the morning before. And then other, especially background characters who I don't think they thought were going to matter much at the time, they take this very towards the Mexican side of the screen. And it works. It balances out, but it is an odd compilation at times.
Yeah, well, maybe it's their way of working something that they know will hopefully, or not know. I mean, who knows how well they thought Dracula was going to do. But, like, their attempt to give the Mexican audience an almost same experience as if they had seen the American adaptation.
I hope so. I do think they were successful to some extent. I mean, this movie did make its money back, at least well enough to continue the Universal trend of making these sorts of movies. I don't know where that trend went. I don't know where Universal eventually killed that program, or if they even did, to be honest.
As far as I'm aware, this is the one that they attempted because it wasn't as successul as American Dracula.
Sure.
But I haven't done any real deep diving into any of that.
Yeah, I know they did at least a good handful more of this idea of like, oh, we'll just film them both. No idea how Universal felt about it, because we know famously Universal's, they'll pull the plug if they like even smell not working well. So I am interested to see which other movies they deemed quote unquote worthy enough to be remade, because this one they weren't even sure Dracula was going to be that popular when, I mean, it wasn't like it came out beforehand. They came out almost simultaneously.
Well, I mean, you had Nosferatu before this, so...
But arguably a completely different film.
I mean, in some regards, I mean, it wasn't different enough to get away from copyright laws, so...
No, granted, they were a little heavy-handed on the copyright laws, but I would argue that it was different enough that I don't think people who were, reading Dracula were also Nosferatu fans.
Yeah. So then do you think that this movie was a decent attempt at an adaptation, or did it feel like a blatant cash grab to get into the foreign market?
This was very difficult to figure out. I watched this movie a handful of times over the last week, trying to pinpoint where this movie works. It works in certain parts, especially with the acting. It works in the fact that it did reach an audience to some extent. Granted, it then got lost and left in an attic in New Jersey for 30 years. I think where it kind of fell through is because the huge budget for the first one was cut significantly for this one. A lot of our practical effects just end up being weird and very lackluster compared to the stellar acting that is in the exact same scene.
Yeah, I mean, you say that, but the effects in the American one are just about the same.
That's true, which is disappointing, because the idea and the base are definitely there for this one. I think if you were to really dissect this movie and be looking at it from a critical eye, and if this was made nowadays, I think it would need to go a completely different way. Because writing-wise, directing-wise, this is clearly set similar to the US one in upper northeast America, and yet all of the rest of the cast and crew are not anywhere near New England. And that's fine, but it's one of those inconsistencies that I think would be a red flag nowadays. 1930s, I don't know if anyone cared.
Yeah, without having known the history of it, I would say this is a solid adaptation of Dracula.
Sure.
I will say knowing why they were filming it definitely makes it feel like a blatant cash grab to corner another market get more into another market that maybe they didn't really have any real business trying to get into.
You think if maybe this wasn't Universal owned, it would have been a little less cash grabby?
I think so, because honestly, that's the thing, is it is a solid movie. I mean, it follows Dracula a lot better than, as much as it can for its adaptation. But I think it is a solid movie, especially compared to, again, the American one and where those ones went, because this one definitely feels like it was trying to be faithful.
I agree. It is definitely doing its best to invoke the spirit of the books, which I like. I think my biggest complaint with it is that Universal themselves don't seem very interested in the fact they ever made this movie, which is kind of a bummer. It's a really good movie. It's very interesting. Yes, it's on your DVD collection. It's not listed on the front of the box, though.
No, it's not. That's the other thing too. Is it's not. I don't think it's listed even on the larger box set that this is part of.
No, you have to physically open the DVD case and flip through to be like, oh, surprise, it's in here.
And it's the last one.
It's like the last one on the back sort of situation. Like you have to be digging for it, which is really a bummer. Looking through Universal's archive of their films, they are proud of their Universal Monster series, as we've talked about before, but they don't ever really seem to bring this one up. It's not like they've erased it. You can find mention of it, you can find some talks of it from the Universal themselves, but they don't seem to be overly excited that they made this film, which, again, I think is too bad. This movie's very good. The acting in it is, really interesting, and I think it would have made a very interesting topic and piece since they did this to a bunch of other films. But they don't seem to care, which is too bad.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. It does feel like it's been kind of like, oh, here's a little bonus for you, and there's a little 10-minute talk ahead of it.
Yeah, which, again, disappointing, because the actress was very interesting, the costumes were very good, I enjoyed the sets, again, from a different angle. I liked this movie. I had a good time. Yeah,
so then would you rent, buy, stream, or decline that we ever watched the Spanish language Dracula despite having an audio recording of us watching it?
I would love to be able to stream this film, but I don't know where one would stream this film. It'd be great. I would love to. If this was on Tubi or Netflix, I would 100% watch this, and I'd make my friends watch this as part of our annual Spooky Monsters Halloween collection. But unfortunately, because this is a dying movie, I'm gonna have to say buy it. I don't think you can get it solo anymore.
No, I think it's only with the Universal Complete Collection. I don't think they even I haven't even looked to see if they sell any of their collection as like a solo movie.
The big three they do, and they kind of re-release them with cool covers every once in a while for Halloween or for like a big anniversary event, but it is pretty rare. The easiest way to get them is this box set. Granted, the box set's good. It comes with a lot of very good movies that, again, Universal isn't super good at distributing or having hands out, so I would say buy this, partially because it's actually good enough that I'd probably watch it every year.
No, I can see where you're coming from with that. I know, for me at least, older movies for others are a little bit more difficult to get through, and this one is better than some of the other ones because it's not as cut and dry.
True.
I would say at least rent, but I do highly recommend buying it, just because it is an interesting tucked away piece of history, and just the entire Universal classic monsters in general is just fascinating.
Absolutely.
And I personally, and some might find this blasphemous, but I think this is a better version of pretty much the same movie compared to the American one. And I would honestly, well, don't get me wrong, I love Bela Lugosi. He did a great job.
Of course, a classic.
And that movie's great in its own right. I like this one a bit more than the American.
I kind of agree with you. Again, prop-wise, the American one is better.
Barely.
The lighting is better. The costumes are a little bit better. But the acting in this one is so damn good. And honestly, I felt like the lines were better. Granted, I'm reading most of them, and my 8th grade Spanish is pulling me through the rest. But maybe I'm cut out for it, because I've found that my Spanish, with my basis level of knowledge, did fine for 1930s movie. So maybe it's more doable than I thought.
Yeah, no, I can feel you there. I mean, that's how I feel with watching some German movies and whatnot.
Yeah, you gotta bring it down to children's level of dialogue, and then I'm good.
Yeah, I tried watching Takashi Miike's Demon Pond
Good
in
luck.
Japanese with German subtitles.
Oh no.
It was rough.
I bet. Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah. But, I mean, definitely use this as a base point. I mean, there's other Spanish language vampire flicks out there that I highly recommend, like El Vampiro. And honestly, I do recommend watching the sequel more so than the first one.
Of course.
It's one of the few ones where, like, I do like the sequel a little bit more. And it's a little bit more stagey in some places, but it's still solid.
Absolutely. And as far as this movie goes, I'm going to go make my friends watch it next week.
Do it. But we are almost near the end of our month of Vamp, but we still have another flick that's just south of the border that's sure to suck you in or suck on your toes a little bit.
I don't like that one. Okay.
Yeah. I know. I don't like it either.
No, we're all uncomfortable now, thanks.
You're welcome. But anywho, this has been the Good, the Bad, the Weird MicroViews.
Thanks for listening.
Peace. Thank you for stopping by this here town of the good, the bad, and the weird. We appreciate your listenership, and if you want more of our takes in your life, feel free to check us out on social media at The Good, the Bad, and the Weird Podcast, or TGTBTW for short. As well, if we missed a fact, your favorite part of a movie, or just have a suggestion and want to reach out and say howdy, feel free to email us at tgtbtwpodcast@gmail.com. And feel free to join our Discord at The Good, the Bad, and the Weird Podcast, where we talk about movies, just share random banter here and there. And always, check out our podcasters, streamers, or any other content creator we shout out in our episodes. We really appreciate it. And as always, thank you for listening. Peace.